7th of June. First of all, apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Joyce, Councillor King, Councillor Frost. Are there any others or substitutes? No?
No further apologies, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, with the rule I call the first planning application, so I will speak and after leave the room.
Okay.
I leave it to all of you to decide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through you, Chair, that will be noted as the predetermination.
Okay, thank you. Chairman's announcements. Can members and officers and speakers please use their microphones so that people joining remotely and watching the live stream can hear us? Can people who have joined remotely please keep their microphones and cameras off until they are invited to speak? If you are called to speak, come and join us at the desk in front of you. Switch your microphone on. There's a sort of speech button at the bottom of the microphone. In front of me, you've got some lights. Green is you're okay to talk. Amber is you've got 30 seconds left. And the red is your 3 minutes are up. But remain seated because the committee may ask you questions, okay? And then we will debate the item. Minutes of the previous meetings of Northampton Local Area Planning Committee held on the 4th of April and the Daventry Area Planning Committee held on the 10th of May. I've got a slight amendment to the minutes of the Daventry meeting on the 10th of May. There's been a correction to the Daventry Planning Committee's minutes. The amended versions have been put on desks and the additional text highlighted. It relates to the application at 31 Kilsby Road, and some additional wording has been added to clarify comments made by the development manager. So with that in mind, are you happy that I sign the minutes of each of those meetings?
Yes, please. Agree.
Thank you very much. Chairman's announcements, I've kind of done that already. Other reports, there are none. Council applications, there aren't any. So we'll move on to item 7, which is applications for determination. And the first one we're going to hear about is item 7A, which is the Rosary 26 of Westthorpe, Sibbertoft. And that is Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. This presentation will largely summarise the contents of the officer's report with regard to the proposed development of the Rosary 26 Westthorpe, Sibbertoft. With regard to late representations, the wording of condition 3 has been amended to make it specific for the purposes of historic building recording, and this is referenced on the circulated addendum. The application site comprises a semi-detached dwelling with 2 outbuildings at the northern end of Westthorpe, as outlined in red. Rosary Cottage is located to the south of the property, along with their land to the east. To the west is a public right-of-way, and to the north are open fields. Number 23 Westthorpe is located to the west of the subject property, on the opposite side of Westthorpe. There are no constraints that fall within the application site, and the land to the east of Westthorpe comprises a field with a public right-of-way crossing it, and that's shown on the plan on the screen. The application seeks permission for extension to the main property, conversion of the existing outbuilding to habitable space, the installation of 2 dormers on the principal elevation of the main house, and other external alterations. Initially, the application sought the replacement of the existing garage with a larger alternative, however this has now been removed. And a previous submission for the property included the relocation of the existing access and a larger side extension. The application before the committee is as described in the report and summarised in this presentation. The summary of the proposed development has been split into separate parts to make each element clear, and these parts correspond to those in the middle of the report. A single-storey side extension and bay window are proposed on a northern elevation, as highlighted on the displayed drawings. A part single-storey and part 2-storey extension is proposed between the eastern elevation of the main house and the western elevation of the existing outbuilding. A new porch on the northern elevation of the extension is also proposed. These drawings show the proposed ground and first floor plans for the entrance extension. The single-storey element would have a flat access roof light, as shown on the right-hand side drawing. The existing outbuilding located to the east of the main house is proposed to be converted to habitable accommodation to include a home cinema with kitchenette, bathroom and guest bedroom, all on the ground floor. New openings are proposed on the north, east and western elevations. 2 new dormer windows are proposed on the western principal elevation that faces Westhorpe. These would serve habitable accommodation on the second floor that includes a bedroom, study and ensuite. A first floor extension is proposed to the rear of the main house on the south elevation and adjacent to the west elevation of Rosary Cottage. This would provide a new stairwell with access to the first floor. Other alterations include Juliet balconies on the principal elevation, replacement of the existing windows, a new access gate, solar hot water panels on the east elevation and landscaping. Now, if these individual elements were carried out in accordance with the general permitted development order, they may not require planning permission. However, this application has been submitted as a whole and therefore has been assessed in its entirety, including the various minor alterations. The key issues arising from the application include design, impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding area, and the impact on the neighbouring amenity. These issues and concerns are addressed in full within the report. The design and appearance of the extensions and alterations are considered to be in keeping with the host dwelling in terms of their form, scale and material. The proposal will have a limited visual impact on the street scene given the property's location at the end of Westhorpe and as the majority of the development is contained within the site. And these images show the street scene view and the view towards the subject property from the exit of the adjacent public right-of-way. When viewed from the adjacent footpath to the east, as shown on these photos, the proposed development would sit within the context of the existing built form and roof lines. With regard to neighbouring amenity, concerns have been raised with overlooking, loss of light, overbearing and access. It is considered that the new openings on the west elevation of the main house, including the dormers, the new flat roof lights on the entrance extension and the openings on the converted outbuilding would not result in any harmful overlooking. These images show the subject property when viewed from the neighbouring land. And these two images show the relationship between the Rosary and Rosary Cottage when viewed from the neighbour's property. With regard to loss of light, overbearing and access, this relates to the proposed Part 1 and Part 2 storey entrance extension and its impact on the neighbouring property's landing room window. These images show the view up to this window and the view out of the window from within Rosary Cottage. It is accepted that this part of the development would impact this window, but it serves a non-habitable room and an appropriate separation gap of 3.045 metres to the extension would be retained. Therefore, any impact is considered not to warrant sufficient grounds for refusal. Any access, maintenance or security issues are not deemed to be planning matters. Following consultation, we've considered the comments raised and sought appropriate amendments, specifically the removal of the replacement garage. It is concluded that the development is sympathetically designed, does not undermine the character of the local area and has limited impacts on neighbouring amenity. As such, is acceptable in planning terms and should be approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 4 speakers on this item. Our first will call on Councillor Irving Swift. To see if you'd like to take a seat at the table, and then we can speak.
And after, should I leave the room?
Yeah, and we'll draw you back in when the time is ready. Thank you. And just to remind you, you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
I hope I will not use my 3 minutes. First, I would like to thank the report because it's quite well, and the applicant has reduced the first proposal to now. Now I will leave it to my colleague on the committee to decide. It's a relation between the Rosary Cottage and the planning application in front of you. It's because it was always part of one property.
And it's all about the overbearing on the neighbour. I think otherwise the parish, at the parish meeting I attended, due to the new application and the withdrawal of a lot of overbearing things, the parish seems to be happy with the changes, except these windows that you show at the end, and that is maybe if the members were willing to reconsider that, see, and I understand that it might not be a planning matter, but for me it's still quite overbearing on the Rosary Cottage. Other than that, I do not have any more, except that, as I always say to everybody, please, when you want to do something, try to speak more to your neighbours. And I think that is, we are where we are, not because of our planners, but because I do believe that there is a solution and there is an amendment to the plan to be made to have to live happily together as neighbours, and that plan doesn't allow that. But I will decide, I will let my fellow councillor to decide what it is a planning matter or not. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just stay at the moment, Cecile. We'll just see if there's any questions. Any questions, Cecile? No? Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to stand outside and we'll stay back in where we voted. Thank you. I'll call on the next... Call on the next speaker, which is Matthew Rowe. Matthew, just like to say who you are and who you represent, please.
Matthew Rowe from Marrons, here to represent Mr and Mrs Hartshorn, who live in Rosary Cottage.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here on behalf of Mr and Mrs Hartshorn as their planning agent. My clients have lived in Rosary Cottage, directly adjacent to the southern boundary of the application site, for 44 years. They are the property most affected by the proposals and have provided reasoned objections on 3 separate occasions during the determination of the application, primarily focused on the impacts upon their immunity and, most importantly, their ability to adequately maintain their property. Members will be aware that the Rosary and Rosary Cottage, as a result of their historic 150-year built relationship, share multiple party walls and common boundaries. This complex relationship has never been properly communicated on any of the submitted site location plans, nor has it accurately been shown on the existing site plan, which suggests that the southeastern outbuilding at the application site is fully connected to the cottage. It is not, and there is a gap allowing for access for maintenance of the cottage's external walls and roof space as required. Evidence of this has previously been provided to the Council in August 2022 and again in March 2023 to seemingly no response, despite repeat requests to rectify the plans so as to ensure for accurate assessment and to not prejudice any decision. Notwithstanding the clear heritage significance of the Rosary, considered a non-designated heritage asset by the Conservation Officer, whom it is noted has objected to the proposals, my client's primary concern is that the development will ensure that they will not be able to carry out any future maintenance or urgent repair work to the property. They previously had unfettered access to their northern elevation to carry out the works, which are frequent given the age of the property. The aforementioned separation between their property and the Rosary has allowed for the placing of scaffolding, etc., to carry out the repairs, with only occasional access required through the grounds of the Rosary itself. The proposals make clear that this separation is being removed in its entirety, and there will be no direct access to their northern elevation or their roof from within their own residential grounds, nor the ability to place scaffolding nor provide direct access for any plant or machinery. Any suggestion that access can be made for plant and machinery through the Rosary via the proposed rear extension and roof lights is evidently not a practical nor a realistic solution. My client's specialist roofing contractor has already confirmed they will not be able to get professional indemnity insurance to cover access and movement of plant, materials and waste through a residential property. A redesign of the proposals, for example, allowing for 2 metres of access between Rosary Cottage and the proposed extensions, would help to overcome some of these concerns. The ability of my clients to enjoy their long-term family home and secure their existing level of amenity will only significantly deteriorate should the proposal be granted permission. The protection of existing resident immunity is one of the key objectives of Policy R1 of the core strategy and Policies RA3 and EMV10 of the Local Plan Part 2. Members will also be aware that paragraph 130 of the MPPF requires development to function well for the lifetime of the development, creating places that are safe, inclusive and accessible, and which promote health and well-being with a high standard of amenity for existing and future users. A refusal of the proposals on design and heritage grounds would comply with both the development plan and the framework. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We just stay there. See if there's any questions from the committee. Any questions? Yes. Councillor Beadsworth.
Thank you very much, and thank you. A very good presentation there. I just wanted to ask about the history of Rose Cottage and the Rosary. Obviously, there's quite a lot of history to that.
Yes.
I know it's not a planning concern, but it's something that the village probably holds dear.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Intrinsically, the properties are effectively interlinked by the shape of the boundary walls, etc. And the properties, like I said, have been effectively how they have been for the last 150 years. It's something that's immaterial to the consideration of the application, notwithstanding the party wall issues and the inaccuracy of the plans that were previously communicated.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Fraser.
Yes, I just wondered, is it possible, because I find that slightly difficult to understand, as perhaps others do, is it possible to have the screen show us where exactly this, what, I'm so sure I've got the name, is arguing about?
The plans.
At this moment in time, no, the system doesn't work.
Is that because,
It's there, so.
well, it's wrong, yeah.
Yeah. I think what we'll do, if we just take a few minutes break, we'll try and get this sorted out and then we'll get the plans back up. So just bear with us.
The Wi-Fi connection's not working.
Yeah, and it showed. Yes.
Well, that was my
Okay, we're ready to restart? Okay, so we'll get the plans that you then Councillor Craig that you wanted to look at.
Yes, it's really more a picture of, I think, when Mr. Tetlow was talking about with the windows and that sort of thing. We do have this sketch, but
Not the photos.
Yeah.
Can we start again then?
Ask your question again.
Yes. This is presumably part of what you were referring to. Would you like to explain to us exactly what it is, which bit on each window, and that's like each picture? Tell us what it is.
Yes, yes. So this is looking at the rear elevation of the rosaries itself. That is the landing room window. Now, previously, access maintenance has effectively been provided through the site, allowing for maintenance of the roof and that elevation from within the rosary itself, effectively via that gap there, via the erection of scaffolding, etc. The main point I was actually referring to is that the outbuilding in the left-hand picture there, the single-storey outbuilding.
The one with the green door?
Yes, yes, yeah, the one with the green door. There is an area of separation that basically runs the entire length of the southern edge of the application site.
Between the one, sorry to interrupt, between the one with the ladder up, is that what you're talking about?
No. So this is in relation to the boundary with the Rosary Cottage.
Right, okay.
Yes, yeah. And even if this separation gap isn't particularly wide, I believe it's less than a metre,
Right.
it does nonetheless allow for the placing of scaffolding, footings, etc.
Yeah.
to provide access to the roof as required. And it has been confirmed via my client's specialist roofing contractor that they simply cannot get professional indemnity insurance to go through a site which they do not own in case of obviously risk of heavy machinery falling, etc. It's effectively that gap there behind, so there's like a slightly more modern brick wall with the water bottom, what have you, and you can see it there. There's effectively daylight within both of the buildings that extends down to the floor.
Okay, Councillor Blake.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much, Mr. Rowe. I'll call the next speaker, which is Sydney Cade. So once again, I'd like to introduce yourself, say who you represent, and 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. I'm Cindy Cade and I live at 23 Westthorpe, which is the property opposite the applicant's site.
Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I've set out for Council on 3 separate occasions our objections to the proposals put forth in respect to this application. Despite being one of the 2 properties within the village that has a clear relationship with the application site, as being directly opposite, at no stage have any of our reasoned objections been appropriately considered by the applicants. For those members unaware, Westthorpe is a narrow lane that becomes a public bridleway just north of our home and the application site. The separation distance between the front elevation of our property and the closest western elevation of the Rosary is less than 20 metres, which is below the separation distance of 22 metres required within the Council's own designing house extensions supplementary planning guidance. The overall height of the Rosary also results in it being appreciated as a 2.5-storey house, and as such there is a clear need for a well-designed and appropriate scheme of works that respects both of our private amenity alongside the historic value of the Rosary. The proposals do not provide this, I believe, in any way. The separation distance of under 20 metres is highly significant, as 3 of our property's bedrooms, first floor lounge, private balcony and garden grounds all have a clear view of the western elevation of the Rosary, where a significant extent of the works are proposed. The existing window openings at first floor level will be opened up into much larger French doors, and there will be clear, consistent and increased opportunities for overlooking from these rooms into all of 3 of our bedrooms, which are primary habitable rooms, alongside our private balcony and garden. This results in what can only be reasonably described as a total surveillance from the Rosary into our property, resulting in a clear and significant decrease in our private amenity. The proposals do evidently not accord with the 45-degree rule mentioned within the supplementary planning guidance either. This is highly contradictory to the fundamental objectives of Policy R1 of the Joint Core Strategy and Policies RA3 and ENV10 of the Local Plan Part 2, which requires all developments to protect the amenity of existing residents and be of an appropriate and small scale given the countryside location. The proposed dormers are entirely at odds with the unbroken and shallow roof pitch of the Rosary, extending to 1.6 metres in height. The materials proposed are modern, and there are no instances of any other flat roof dormers within the village. There is also a clear admission within the submitted proposed elevations that there are concerns about privacy, given the use of obscured glazing. An alternative of conservation roof lights in the rear roof line would provide a much better solution. This is contrary to the objectives of policy EMV10 of the Local Plan Part 2, which requires development to protect the form, character and setting of the village. The dormers significantly increase the massing of the western elevation and have a clear overbearing impact, further contrary to policy. When considered alongside the overlooking point, this further demonstrates the fundamentally poor design of the proposals. Should the motion be put forward to approve, I respectfully request that members consider a planning condition.
Sorry, I need to end you there, I'm afraid. Any questions? Councillor Bearsworth.
I'd like the lady to finish her statement.
Can
I ask?
Councillor Bearsworth, you know that.
Can I ask?
Can I ask a question? Yes.
Could I ask if there were anything that you wanted to add to?
No.
You can.
Councillor Bearsworth, training last night.
I know.
Okay. No, there's no questions for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
For the next speaker, which is Mr. Roy Hammond. Mr. Hammond, would you like to say who you are, who you represent, and then I'll start your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Councillors. I'm Roy Hammond and I speak on behalf of the applicants. By way of background, this is a proposal to create a lifetime family home for my clients, the Abrahams. It's not an exercise in speculative development.
Start that again, hold on. Sorry, start again.
Okay, we've worked closely with the planning officer, including in response to the concerns raised by neighbours. We are grateful for the officer's hard work and for his recommendation for approval. The original proposal for a new access has been omitted, together with the garage proposal. The extent of the side extension has been significantly reduced. We've also addressed all application procedural matters raised by the officer. The proposed dormers have been reduced in size and set back from the eaves line. The previous pitched roofs have been omitted, traditional lead facing added, and the dormers will be obscurely glazed. There are dormer examples in the village, and the changes to the proposed size and appearance maintain the cascading hierarchy of windows ascending the front elevation to the dwelling. The changes to the dormers address the concerns raised, in my view, including in respect of overlooking. With regard to the proposed Juliet balconies, evidence of previous balconies on the dwelling has been presented to the council. The presence of the first floor opening doors to the front elevation reaffirms their previous existence. The Juliet balconies will complement the existing fenestration and the principal elevation. I do not agree with the residents' concerns that the Juliet balconies would afford an unacceptable degree in increase in overlooking of Kingsley House opposite, having regard to lines of sight, separation distances and the oblique angles involved. The amended side extension is in keeping with the appearance and scale of the existing dwelling, and would in any event, by reason of its location at the end of the lane, have minimal impact on the street scene. The proposed two-storey extension to the side stroke rear is subservient and wholly in keeping and would be invisible from the public realm. The two-storey extension does not give rise to harm to the occupiers of Rosery Cottage in planning terms, given that the only window impacted is a landing window, which in planning terms is not a habitable room. In any event, given the degree of separation and design, in my opinion, it would not result in the loss of significant light to that landing window. We've agreed to obscure glaze the roof lights at the ground floor ceiling level, visible from Rosery Cottage's landing window. And one of those roof lights is accessible, so if maintenance was required to the neighbour, that is entirely possible. The insertion of new windows in the outbuilding to be used as habitable space could, in my view, be undertaken as permitted development. And the only matter I'm at odds with Oliver on is the proposal to remove permitted development rights in respect of further extensions and other alterations to the dwelling house. Conditions need to meet certain tests in order for them to be lawful. In my opinion, and with greatest respect to Oliver, I do not believe that that particular condition does meet those tests.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Time's up. Just stay there, see if you've got any questions for you. Any questions, Mr. Hammond? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oliver, any comments come back on there? No? Okay. Any questions for the committee? James.
Thank you, Chair. There was a condition mentioned by the speaker. Can you outline more around what that includes, please? Thank you, Oliver.
This is just for clarification, the permitted development rights being removed. So this removes, the recommendation is to remove permitted development rights for the property for essentially extensions to the property, alterations to the roof and new chimneys, flues, etc. This is in essence just to ensure that the council has future control over any changes to the property. There's obviously quite a lot of changes going on already, and we do feel that it meets the necessary tests, putting that in place.
Any other questions? Councillor Beasley?
I'm just trying to find the conservation report. I understand the conservation officer wasn't happy with it.
So the property isn't in a conservation area or listed.
No.
In their comments, they designated it as well. They said it was a non-designated heritage asset. Sorry, and hence the reason for the historic building recording condition. They did raise some design concerns, which we took into account, particularly with the dormers, but we felt they were acceptable in review, and they have been amended as Mr. Hammond addressed.
And just one other question. How much bigger will the property be with the extensions?
I don't have the exact increase in floor space, but it is within the confines of the site, and it's not a significant increase, but I don't have the exact dimensions.
So it's not half as big as the house, or?
I wouldn't be able to comment exactly without...
Well, you've got a film room, haven't you, somewhere on site?
So I'll show you the site plan.
I've got the plan, but I can't work out what it was before.
So it shows the film room and the kitchenette, and that's all to do with the outbuilding being converted. There's actually no increase in floor space.
Okay.
It's just these, it's just these increases here.
Okay. And have you resolved the issue of access to the roof of the cottage?
That would be a civil matter. It's not a planning matter, so to speak, but there is an access roof light, so there is availability to get onto that roof if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments? Okay, the officer's recommendation is for approval. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Hill proposes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cribbin, all those in favour? Favour, against, abstain?
Yes, I find this very difficult one to make a decision on.
Okay.
I don't think it was clear enough.
Thank you very much, but I did ask for comments
That's fine,
earlier.
thank you.
So that application is approved. Okay. So we'll move on to item 7B, which is the land adjacent to the Royal Oak in Church Street, Naseby. We need to get Councillor Smith back in, so hopefully she will. So hopefully the technology has now sorted itself out and things will run a bit more smoothly, hopefully. So moving on to 7B, and this is Erica's, and this is land adjacent to the Royal Oak in Naseby.
This application is for construction of a detached property on land adjacent to the Royal Oak. The proposal includes the construction of a new access. This is the site location plan, and there's the properties. This is the Royal Oak here. There's some properties here, and this is the houses, existing houses here. This is the site area. Here is some stables which are to be demolished as part of the proposal. The site lies in open countryside and outside the village boundary. This is the existing site plan. The application site is on the northern side of Church Street and is a grassed area which rises from the road. Most of the existing properties lie on the lower land and than the application site. The site's topography contrasts with the surrounding flatter lower land on the southwestern side where the existing properties are. The location of the proposed dwelling is here, with a garage there and the new access. There is an existing access coming in from the Royal Oak, which is to be retained. Oops. Yes, I can't do it straight on. Yeah, there's the new slide up. This is the proposed dwelling. It's the main house and the garage. This is a street elevation where you can clearly see that the land is higher, rises up. Again, this is another view from the street. This shows the elevations of the front and the rear of the property. And these are sections for the house. Again, this is the elevations of the property. And here are the visuals. This is all the visuals of what the proposed house would look like. This is the house, and this is the rear elevation, and the smaller side single dwelling development there. This is the rear elevation with a glassed section in the middle. That one. Okay, thank you. And this is another the visual of the new dwelling. These are all the visuals of the proposed dwelling. And here you can see this is the road showing the road, and you can see the graduation of the road where the house will sit up. Down here is the roads into the existing properties, and you can see that they are at a lower level. This is the site photos which show the site is here and the road that goes around there from Naseby out towards Cold Ashby. And this is the site. As you can see, this is the road and the topography. Again, you can see the site. This is a gift from the road opposite. And this is the back access in from the pub, from the Royal Oak, and this is the access into the site, current access into the site from the Royal Oak, and that is intended to be retained. Again, this is the close-up of it. The application site provides an important part of transition from the village confines to the open countryside. Naseby is a secondary service village identified by policies RA2, where it states that development should be in the confines. Acceptance is where the housing land supply is less than 5 years, where development would clearly meet an identified need, where scheme has been identified to support an essential local service, and it gives the criteria for development outside. None of the above are applicable to this application. RA2 requires development inside or outside the village to be of an appropriate scale of the form, character and setting of the village. It is considered that the proposed dwelling is of a scale that is out of keeping with the character of the area. The proposed dwelling does not meet the identified need within the Naseby Housing Needs Survey, and therefore the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons set out in the committee report.
Okay, thank you, Richerica. We have 3 speakers on this, so I'll call Councillor Harris first, if you'd like to join the table, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Harris, representing the Brixworth ward in which this proposed application sits. I'm here responsible for recording for this particular application. I will be very brief. You're going to hear from Councillor Reedman shortly, who's Chair of Naseby Parish Council. I simply want to say that I agree with the officer's recommendations and would urge the committee to refuse this application. All of the reasons for doing so are set out very clearly in the report. Specifically, we draw the attention to policy R1 and part of policy RA6. This site sits outside of the confines of the village. It's not relevant particularly to this particular application, but there have been past applications on this site. Both have been refused. One went to appeal, which was dismissed on appeal. So that's simply what I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Harris. Any questions? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. I guess my question is, why have you called it in if the officers were going to refuse anyway? Because
the officer was going to refuse it.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, obviously, it's officer time, all that sort of thing. Thank you. Yeah, no worries. Cheers.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Okay. I'll call on the next speaker, which is Paul Reed, to come and join us. Introduce yourself, say who you represent, and I'll start your 3 minutes.
Could I have a plan about the third one, which shows a site with the adjoining road going away from it?
Yes.
From the layout plan, please? This is one which shows the access. The next one on which shows the house.
The one with the house on there.
Yeah, that's the one, yes, thank you.
I'll start your 3 minutes now.
Can I introduce myself first? So Paul Reedman, Chairman of Naseby Parish Council. We fully support the recommendation for refusal with all the reasons. The only issue which we wish to highlight is the access which the highways officer on your behalf has recommended for approval, and a visibility display is only 2.4 by 46 metres to the Cold Ashby Road. On that plan on the board, the road going off to the left is to Cold Ashby. It's also to junction 1 of the A14, very heavily used traffic going out and in. The road coming down to the south, to the bottom of the picture, is Nutcote, which most people in the village going to Northampton, the doctor's surgery, Guildford School will use. It's heavily used. The previous appeal decision, when that inquiry was being held in 2016, so 5 houses and access almost in exactly the same place. The county council at the time, the highways officer, wrote to the inspector enclosing a plan which he would accept, and he had got a visibility display of 2.4 by 71 metres. And the 71 metre was only limited because the ownership of the land restricted it to a 71 metre rather than 90 metre access. The main road to the village, going out to Cold Ashby and through the village, is a local distributor or even a higher classification road. And for 30-mile-an-hour limit, the visibility display should be 2.4 by 70 metres as a minimum. The applicant has carried out a 7-day, 24-hour traffic count and speed survey. The 2 points he positioned the survey were to the north, approximately where the access is positioned, and to the west of Nutcote. What it and then predicted a 85% percentile speed, which is the speed at which 85% of the vehicles are travelling at that speed or lower. Of course, 15% are going higher than that speed, and the fact recorded 10% of the vehicles going between 31 and 56 miles an hour, coming from the left, A14, coming past the junction, and we believe that the visibility display of 2.4 by 4.46 is totally inadequate. It's dangerous. People living on the other side of the road, the properties to the right of the site, experience and record near misses when they're trying to get out of their drive with traffic coming round at very high speeds. So we disagree with the highways officer. We support the authority's view to refuse the application, but we very definitely don't think the access would be adequate if you were to go against your officers and agree to approve the scheme. Thank you.
Okay, spot on, well timed. Okay, just stay there for a moment and see if there's any questions. Councillor Beaver.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I too was surprised at the highways officer, but I don't think we've got one here tonight with us, have we? The highway officer? We haven't. And I will be looking into it, but as I say, it does look quite dangerous what you're proposing. And I was surprised that the highway officer was, you know, not raising that issue.
Okay.
Is that a question? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call on the next speaker, which is Simon Tindall. Just introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Simon Tindall from Brown and Co. I'm a Chartered Town Planner, representing Mr. Lorimer, who's with me today, who's the applicant. Mr. Lorimer would just like to say a quick few words just about the reason.
He's not registered to speak.
Right, we did. Fine, that's no problem, Chair. So, you know, Mr. Lorimer chose this site because it is, you know, he is a local person.
Can you turn your microphone? I'll start you again. Can you turn your microphone? You get feedback as well, so just talk loud.
I think I'm talking loud enough, but that's okay. So, Mr. Lorimer is a local person. His wife works in the local hospital, Kettering General. They want a site close to where they both work. Mr. Lorimer owns a local company, employs, you know, lots of people. They want to live in the area. They want to live in a nice place. They want to self-build their own property. And after a long site selection, found this site. So, members, I'm aware this is a new committee, but we have some very experienced members here today, and so I just want to go into some of the policy basis. So I must highlight to members that the Officer report does not provide the committee with a full picture so that you can make the informed decision. The proposed home is located outside the development framework of the village, but it's important to understand that this has been acknowledged from the very start. It's well related, and the Daventry Part 2 local plan plans for this exact situation with policy RA2. The Officer report gives members very little information on this policy, only to say that development outside the village would only be acceptable in certain circumstances. This report provides no commentary on what those circumstances are, or how the application before you fails to meet those circumstances, simply concluding that there's not a need for this type of house in the village. Policy RA2 states, in fact, where development provided will clearly meet an identified local need for housing, identified through a local housing needs survey or housing needs assessment, where this cannot be otherwise met within the confines of the village. Now, a housing needs survey was undertaken in Naresby in 2021 by West Northlands Council, and had identified the need for 70 new homes in Naresby to address demand. So far, none of those homes have been built. As far as I'm aware, there's no homes on the table. So there's simply no sites within the confines of the village. It's going to be very difficult to accommodate 70 new homes within the village boundary. Therefore, well-related sites on the edge of the village should be considered, and as you've seen before, this is a very well-related site. Even if the council approve this, they're going to have to find a further 16 dwellings, and this is going to have some landscape impact. So I asked the committee, what is the point of preparing the housing needs assessment if then the findings are going to be ignored, if the applications to address this shortfall are going to be refused? I note also that the officer report indicates it's the sensitive part of the village. The landscape character assessment, which was included as part of the application, disagrees with that. I mean, that obviously that was provided by ourselves, but it was a professional landscape professional who prepared that. The landscape visual appraisal states that the sensitivity of this piece of land is low, and with mitigation as part of the application, this would be negligible.
Your time is really I will just see if there's any questions for you. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question regarding how you went about applying. So, obviously, there's been a few objections from your local WMC councillor, Jonathan Harris, and also the parish council. Did you try any engagement with people to try and see whether you could find a development which would be acceptable to residents and local councillors?
Yeah, yes, we certainly did. So initially, before the application went in, the applicant engaged with the parish council. Initially, he asked if he could go along to the parish council meeting to. This is in the planning statement if you've had a look at that. But he asked to go along to the parish council meeting, and he was rebutted. So they said no, thank you. We don't want you to come along and speak about it. Which they didn't have to necessarily like it. They could have given the applicant the time just to say his piece and explain, as we have done tonight to you, as to his aims. I'm aware that the previous application's been refused. It's a sensitive site, but that previous application was related to historic policy, so it's not RA2, it's not the most up-to-date policy. So he wanted to go ahead and try and explain all of that. As I say, he wasn't able to do so, and he got quite a terse email back from the parish, if I'm honest.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we'll come back on.
Okay, so hand over to the committee. Any questions?
I am the ward member too from this, so could I speak as a ward member or not?
Not now, because
No, but I will speak on the planning application. So,
sorry, do you want to take part in the debate?
yes. First, I would like to thank the officer for the report, and I have been representing Nesby for 15 years, and that site has always been a contention. When you know the site, and the gentleman who proposed to build a house should know that that site has always been contentious in Nesby. Nesby is a village that has seen a lot of growth, and the officer stated that there is no need for a house of that type in Nesby. So therefore, I would propose that we go with officer advice and we refuse the planning application. That is my proposal.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? Councillor Hill.
Yeah, so mine's more of a question around procedure. So obviously this recommend's been recommended for refusal. Obviously the member called it in because they thought it hadn't been. We had training last night which outlined just about how expensive and how much more it costs to have a planning application come through committee rather than determined by officers. So my question is, can we make sure that we have A talking to B next time to ensure that we don't have wasted time like we are now basically? Because we think we know, I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
Clearly, a lot of officer time has probably been wasted.
Yeah, okay, good,
Thank you.
Councillor Beasley.
Chair, you've got a proposal on the table to refuse. Can I second that motion?
You may. So we've got a proposal from Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Bearsworth. The recommendation is to refuse the application. All those in favour? Thank you. So that application is refused. Thank you very much. Thank you. So move on then to item 7C. If speakers, could you hear yourself?
There's an echo. There's
feedback. If you hear an echo, don't use your microphone.
We need to speak
Let's
out.
put a shout.
Okay, so we move on to item 7C, which is 56 Green Hills Road. This is going to be Andrew who's going to present this.
Right, thank you. This is application 56 Green Hills Road. Very long description there. The description essentially is change of use of the dwelling to a children's home for 4 children, together with 2 resident carers. There are also extension alterations proposed, which would increase the number of bedrooms from 2 to 4 bedrooms and provide additional space at the ground floor as well. So this is the site within Green Hills Road and the aerial view there. Move on to the existing elevations. This shows the house as it is, hipped roof, 1 dormer window and a conservatory. This is as proposed. You can see alterations to the roof, provide a second dormer on the eastern elevation, which provide an additional bedroom and a new dormer to the west, which allows for a moving of the stairs. You can also see on here the proposed single-storey extensions, which have all got a flat roof. Existing plans here show the dwelling as it is, with 2 bedrooms, 1 on the ground floor, 1 on the first floor. This plan shows the proposed ground floor layout and the site plan overall. So you can see at the side extension in place of the conservatory, this provided 1 additional bedroom, also extension with the enlargement of the kitchen, reconfiguration of the ground floor to provide a bedroom in what was a former living area, a reception room in the former bedroom and an office, bathroom, utility room in the garage. You can also see the proposed parking arrangements. These do meet the standard for this proposed use. Local Highway Authority have confirmed no objections and they state in fact visibility would be improved. Removal of part of the hedge is proposed to allow for this. This would have a visual impact, but in itself removing the hedge is not something that would require permission. Move on to proposed first floor plan. You can see here the additional bedroom and the small dormer to allow for the stairs. Take you through some photographs. So these are photos of the site. So from these you can see how well the site is actually screened from this particular angle. Move on to a photo here that shows it in context with the neighbouring house. So you've got the existing dormer here. The proposed dormer would be to the side of this. That would then be looking out over this driveway, so sort of public area, rather than overlooking any private garden space. Final photograph is the bungalow itself. You see here the conservatory. You can see also the boundary screening. So the extension, one of the extensions would be here. As I say, that would be a single-storey flat roof extension, so hardly that visible above the boundary. Go back a few screens back to the site. So that's the extensions. Obviously the proposal also is for a change of use to a children's home for 4 children. We'll also include 2 carers on site, one of whom will be sleeping in the office space, one would remain awake. This would be an increase in occupancy of the building, but as discussed previously, the extension of the alterations are considered acceptable. So if this was a family dwelling, was going to stay as a family dwelling, we would be saying that sort of extension is acceptable. The level of occupancy is going to be similar as a children's home or as a family dwelling. Obviously, objectives have raised some concerns about possible behaviour of the children, antisocial behaviour. Can't be assumed that just because it is a children's home, they're going to behave any better or worse than if it was a family home. So that's not really able to be given a lot of weight. It should also be noted, as was said out in the report, that a slightly different use class with care being given to children, but with everybody living together as a family, wouldn't actually need permission. So it's a very fine line between what is proposed here, what could happen without the need for permission. So, in conclusion, the proposed extensions, alterations are considered acceptable in respect to the impact on the street scene, the character of the area and the amenities of adjoining occupiers. The use is considered acceptable to have no greater impact than the use of the bungalow as a dwelling house. Also complies with parking requirements, no objection from the local highway authority. Finally, I would just draw your attention to the addendum, which lists late comments that have come in. So what you see on the addendum, most of those points are raised as discussed there, are covered in the report. The other impact on property values is mentioned. That's not something which is a material planning consideration. It's also not possible to claim compensation against a planning decision. Some further comments after the addendum have come through as well. Deeds of 56 Green Hills Road have been referred to, and apparently they may state that commercial uses are not allowed. That would not be a material planning consideration. It's also been commented that a family home would not require this level of work. As I've said, this could have been approved with the use staying as a family home, so that's not able to be given that much weight either. Further comment that states overlooking would occur. As we've said, the additional windows face over what is a public area, so I don't consider that overlooking. Accuracy of the parking area, there's been comments about that, but that would have to be done as shown on the plans. Number of bedrooms, been mentioned that could be seen as 5 rather than 4. Even if it was to be seen as a 5-bedroom property, the parking standards are complied with for 5 bedrooms as well. Final point that's come through in the late comments is this company operates another children's home nearby, and there's been a comment that they're monopolising the housing stock. There's nothing that says how many dwellings within an area can be children's homes or not, and really 2 properties within a large area is not really monopolising. So that's covers those points, and that's what I've got to say for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 5 speakers on this. So first of all, Councillor Ruins. Like to address the committee, Sam?
Do you want me to use the microphone or not?
Well, try it, and if there's an echo, after shut up.
You want me to test whether you're green?
Yeah, just tell me at the end whether the orange light comes on. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, Councillors, Officers. Yes, there's a few things to run through here.
Sam, turn your microphone on.
Okay. I will start to go for that. So the main theme to this for me is that the change of use is not appropriate in the location. So I take the points from Andrew Holden on if it was residential or it was slightly different classing. But at this point, if anyone knows Green Hills Road and St Mark's Crescent and the area around it, this change of use, effectively something going from being a residential property to what will be a business, irrelevant of whatever other stuff is going on, that is going to be a significant change of use. The intentions of then what's going on the site completely change. It changes from being a family dwelling.
Could you speak up a bit, please?
Yes, it changes from being a family dwelling into a business operation of some description, even though obviously the operation of that business is to care for children, which is absolutely a fair thing to run a business for. Other things to look at, I think, overdevelopment on the site, so it's a significant increase on the upstairs and the increase on the dormer. You've then got vehicle safety, so I'm not sure about the situation with the turning circle on the driveway where you've got the 3 cars shown and how that situation is actually going to work. And I think if you've got 3 vehicles on that drive at one point, we're going to be having cars coming out into the street and needing to be turning. And I take one key point on that, and that is this is an exceptionally quiet street most of the time. A cute little quiet, really nice street. Residential has been for a very, very long time, except for 2 times of the day, and that is when you've got the school run to and from just before 9 and just after 3. And suddenly it becomes the busiest place on earth. And this property is placed right on a key junction, 4-way junction, onto Link Road, which leads right round to Whitehall Primary School. And I think already it's a dangerous situation with the amount of cars that we get, and we've got a wider issue at council with needing to find ways to get people out of cars on the school run, but nonetheless, that is a real situation that's there. This is a property that's likely to have significantly more vehicles going in and out of it than if it was a residential property. So I think that's a material consideration that needs to be taken account of. There is also encroachment on nearby properties, actually I believe in respect of loss of light. So if we look at 1 St Mark's Crescent, which is just next door, the extra dormer that's being put in is going to cause a loss of sunlight at later times of the day as the sun sets in the west. That's clear to see. I went over there the other day to check the site myself, and it was clear that that was the case. There would be a loss of light over 1 St Mark's Crescent. I'd also just like to ask a question. So Highways have said they have no objections. I'd like to know if they've actually visited the site and assessed the overall, the parking, the highway situation, the safety, and everything else in respect of it. Finally, noise risk. So we've got the property is being extended backwards up towards 1 St Mark's Crescent, and there's going to be a small...
Okay, try the microphone.
Got me? Better? So the property is being extended back almost right up to the boundary of 1 St Mark's Crescent, but leaving just enough space for people to be there. And I wonder what the restrictions are going to be on that particular piece of area there as well. So,
Okay, thank you.
is that right? Is that right? Perfect.
Remain there, Sam. See if there's any questions. Any questions for Councillor Williams? Councillor Bearsworth?
Councillor Williams, the Link Road has shops in it. Link Road has shops in it, and at times we've had problems there with teenagers and other, I'm sure you're aware, as a ward councillor, and that is very close to this house. So I'm just wondering if it's the right place to put it because of the situation with it being so close to Link Road. What's your view on that?
Yeah, precisely. That's another point, to be honest, that could have been added on to the long list of things that make this inappropriate for the particular site. There are a number of issues that we have with Link Road shops, as we do with many different sets of shops across the town and across the district. Yeah, and this only adds to it. And when you've got the school, the shops, you've also then got other shops around at the pub end, etc. This then adds another potential risk, small risk area. I would just like to make one point actually, and that is, on the fact of this being a children's home, I think we need, council-wise, a more joined-up strategy in how we approach this. I think the way that these applications are coming forward is not right in terms of their landing, and you've got 30-odd days to respond to it, and it's not one with resident support and general area support, and it's not done in a strategic way. And I think that is a massive council policy failure.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yeah, I was going to... Well, I'm assuming, I suppose, the officers are going to come back and talk to us about whether the highways have actually been down there and had a look at it. They seem to have no problem with the site. I'm just wanting to see, whether they've actually seen it, because clearly local councillors have got more information.
We'll come back to that in a moment. Councillor Russell?
I'll speak loudly. Yeah. Sam, I can assure you this is not the busiest place on earth in school runs. I'm sure it's very busy and congested, but anyway. Highways and the local highways authority have absolutely no problem with this. They say that the visibility is good and that they're not going to raise any objections. And all I can imagine is that there's a degree of people feeling very uncomfortable, residents nearby feeling very uncomfortable about children and children's homes and what that could represent within the community. Do you have any other views on that?
About the highways, parts in general?
Both the highways and the way people, residents, are viewing
Yeah,
children's
so on the highways point, personally, having seen a number of situations that have arisen, across applications and situations in Kingsthorpe and the wider area along a long period, I don't have full confidence in all aspects of the highways service, actually. I think there are parts there, and so and this specifically, I'll be interested to know if there has been a site visit specifically on that. On the general point, so the temperature that I've taken on, I've spoken to a lot of people on this, because I'm, as a corporate parent on West Northants Council, it's extremely important to me to make sure that we've got as many spaces as possible for young people that need care in our district, and it's been a big problem obviously historically with children being sent out of county. So we obviously need to do
We're not
something
here to
more.
discuss that.
Yeah.
But obviously that relates directly to this.
Can we bring this question to an end? And then could we use the microphones as well again? Because the people on the teams can't hear us.
Yeah. So no, I don't sense that residents just want to object for the sake of it being a children's home, but it, as with anything, it's got to be placed in the right location. It just doesn't seem to be quite the right location.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, and the opinion of lots of other people.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Can I just ask one more?
Go on, Councillor.
I understand this was discussed at some time, and I know you attend the Kingswell Parish Council. I don't know whether you knew their feelings on the matter.
Well, it is in the report.
It's in the report, okay. So you agree with it?
With the views of the parish.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Rooms, thank you. Call on the next speaker, is Mr. Scott Prosen, to join the table and introduce yourself and say who you represent.
So you want me to press this, or do you just want me to speak?
No, I want to press the microphone because people on Teams can't hear us.
Is this okay?
That's perfect, thank you.
I want to put my time on. Okay. I'll introduce myself. My name's Scott Prosen. I represent my mother over there. She's lived there 60 years. My father died there last year. My granddad died there 60 years. So it's a little bit emotional. Okay. I'll just introduce. I've run council jobs for Northamptonshire Partnership Homes, South Northants. I've done crossover jobs, all sorts of building jobs. So I'm pretty qualified. I've run HMOs, licensed in this borough. So I do know a bit about planning applications. Okay. So basically, a long time ago, this was a one-bedroom bungalow that was converted into a two-bedroom with a gable end on one end. It had a massive garage extension put in, basically because the guy at the time liked cars, and it was a big wide garage, double tandem length, and it wasn't objected to by my mother and father because it hits their boundary because he liked cars. Now at the moment this is going to be turned into an office, a bathroom and a utility room. It backs straight onto the border of my mother's house. It will be a massive noise intrusion. Okay, simple as that. So I'm going down objective lines, I'm not mentioning about kids or anything else. Okay, so basically you want to put a gable end on the other end and stretch the dormer and put a dormer on the front. And by the way, that dormer, although Mr. Holden doesn't say it because he's not been in my mother's garden, would overlook my mother's private space. It's as simple as that. It is a transit area. It is on a stairwell, but it would still overlook my mother's space. So there's no picture there, Mr. Holden. And thanks for replying for me emails. That was sarcasm, by the way. Okay, so basically we then got a massive overdevelopment which is now badged as a 4-bedroom, but in pre-Christmas was a 5. But now you have 3 utilities. The 5th one may or may not be a bedroom, so that's just smoke and mirrors. It's not, it's just blatant lies. It's as simple as that. It would be a 5-bedroom home, having 7 to 8 people in it. Now since the 1970s I was a kid, there's never been any more than 3, and the 3rd person was a small kid. It is a bungalow. It's as simple as that. It is a bungalow. More suited for the elderly, the infirm or disabled. It is can't be put into. It does change the characteristics, Miss Hall, massively. And as regards, so basically, we are. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but it annoys me. Okay, but fair enough. Okay, so basically, then we've got an overdevelopment. Okay, so basically, 80% increase on ground floor, 100% increase on the first floor. No sizes were put on that application. Okay, so there is no reference point from A to B. 80%, and that is mainly because of that garage conversion. So you have a garage conversion, you lose parking. To gain that, we objected on the 2 parking spaces. Those, and I would like you to pull that up at the end, those cars are totally out of scale. When 2 cars enter, you can't get a 3rd in, okay? I objected on that. I've done crossovers. I know all about visibility space. Yes, by taking hedges down, you will increase the visibility space. Yes, you will. You will not get the 3rd car on. You will only get the 3rd car on by widening the drive. Widening the drive, you need a change of crossover. Then that's what I refer to by the highways actually. Not the visibility, simple as that. And it changes the complete aesthetics of the house. By knocking down 15 metres of established hedgerows, changing that, it will turn it into basically what's a house, not a bungalow. Too much dormant.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any questions for you? Any questions? No? Oh, yes, Councillor Beard.
Yeah, you stated actually measurements in your. I've driven past the site.
Yes, I did.
And you've taken measurements, so that this is virtually 100% extra.
I've only done it off a grid system, okay, off the plan, because on the application, and I've never done one of these, it says what is the square footage and square meterage. There's no X to Y.
No.
It's as simple as that. I've done it off a grid system. You can't include the conservatory. That's a temporary structure. Okay. So converting the garage, the wraparound extension, the new ground floor extension will increase that by around 80%. Okay. That alone, and the top floor will be around 100%. It's very, very small. It was a one-bedroom house.
It was tiny, wasn't it?
It was tiny, and it's now looking at 5, and that is disingenuous at best. It was actually, his first application was a 5. It's suddenly become a 4, but nothing's changed. All that is badged is just badged as a yeah, I hope I have.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I've got the issue TV Brown. Thank you. Like to address the committee.
I live at 1 St Mark's Crescent, so could I please have the picture up of the side of the small extension near the utility, where they're going to put the utility, because that area is a very tiny area. It's a side on to my property, and it sees all the way down my rear, side and front garden.
You want us to just bring it up, and then we'll start.
Yes, yeah, and my objection to that small area is it's tiny.
Sorry.
Can I speak now?
Can we just wait and get relevant?
You can't really. Can I get up?
No, it's not. Is this the picture you want?
Where the utility is.
Yeah.
Proposal for the utility.
Okay. Well, sorry, 3 minutes now. Okay. Go for it.
Right, where the proposal is for the utility, that line that goes all the way down is the other way, into their garden, because that property is built on an angle, it literally overlooks the whole of my property. It's not just facing over the green, and it's not just overlooking my frontage, it's overlooking my side. It directly looks into my kitchen window and down the side into my rear garden. Now that little walkway where they're planning on taking out a structural wall to build the extension over, and then a tiny walkway from the utility to the back garden is a gateway width, and the noise from the utility itself is going to be quite horrendous. There'll be people out there smoking. It's a tiny little area and not suitable for that. And as you move round to the back of that house, it's not the side, it's the back, they're extending it a massive amount downstairs, and as Scott said, twice the size, 100% extension upstairs, and as they're going up on the gable end, that blocks out my light at certain times of the day. In fact, I'll have no light into the kitchen. And also, all the windows overlook my property. Now, other properties in the residential area haven't been able to do that. They've had to have just skylights because they know they weren't allowed. So I'd like to totally object to that because they do overlook my property. That plan is not true to how that property faces onto my property. And I don't know if any of you have been out. I presume you have, so you've seen the location, because that needs to be looked into. I've also spoken to a solicitor about the deeds, the original deeds, and he suggested to look at those because it is a residential property, and although the company may imply that it's going to be a residential property, in fact it's a commercial business where people will be paid to work there. So that alone needs to be addressed as well. I've got massive issues with the noise of it all. I know it will affect the whole community. We're a very quiet community. I know there's been a mixed bag of objections from all ages in the community. So that's something else to be considered because it's caused a massive unrest in the community, and it's affected my mental health that much. I put my property up for sale and it sold quickly twice, and straight away when they found out about the proposal they backed out.
Okay.
You've had that as well.
Just stay there for a moment.
Yes, no, that's fine.
Just see if there's any questions. Councillor Flavel.
Yes, could I ask, you just said there'll be a lot of noise. Can I ask how you can say that and where your information comes from?
What, the noise factor?
Yes.
Because I know about other commercial properties that are on White Hills Way, Obelisk Rise, and also one in Duston, which is caused absolute hell.
Forgive me, but we're talking about this one.
Yes, but you've got to understand from a resident's point of view, it's a massive risk, and this will possibly happen again.
It's a risk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now the next two speakers are going to join us on Teams, hopefully. So I'll call Ashley Stokes.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can. Okay,
Excellent, thank you.
We've got 3 minutes.
Yeah. Good evening, I'm Ashley Stokes. I'm the agent responsible for the plan application at 56 Greenhill Road on behalf of Regional Therapeutic Homes. The proposal involves a small increase in footprint of about approximately 25 square metres based on the site, which is around about 555 square metres, which doesn't constitute an overdevelopment of an individual site. We have a replacement side extension over the existing sunroom and a small link tucked in at the back of the property with a flat roof that sits at the same height as the existing flat roof garage. The existing first floor is extended to allow for additional bedroom and shower room. And I would like to also point out that this is a 2-storey bungalow and not a single storey as per one of the objections, and we do not propose to change this. Overall, the proposal is modest in scale and respectful of the existing property and surroundings. Existing viewpoints are maintained. The new first floor bedroom dormer faces the same way as the existing dormer, overlooking the rear garden and the green. And the new dormer to the driveway side of the property does have windows, but this dormer contains stairs and a landing, which results in people on the street being able to see the people's knees on the landing as they traverse in the building, and not an overlooking issue on invasion of privacy, as the view offered from this side dormer is of the driveway, the neighbour's driveway, and Greenhill Road. The existing driveway to the property has been extended into the garden, and the adjacent low-level wall and bushes have been cleared back to allow greater visibility for drivers and pedestrians. As noted previously, the highways have reviewed the proposal and have no objections on the parking or access. The bushes are in question within the boundary of the site are well maintained, but other than that, they do not contribute to the character of the area, as one of the objections raised. The numbers of cars and people present, I'd like to point out actually the cars are to scale. That's not an architect's trick of reducing the scale of them. The cars and people present are limited and controlled on this property, whereas if it was a C3 residential extension, there'd be no control over the numbers of people, cars, visitors and noise, etc. We also have cycle storage on the plans to assist trying to keep the cars down to a minimum also. We have a letter of support from the Northampton Children's Trust stating the need for quality Ofsted approved homes such as this one. The proposal is property is situated in a residential area with schools, Tesco Express and Rec very close by, and half a mile down the roads off the Kingsthorpe front with all its amenities. A perfect location for a children's home. The unsupported claim of an increase in crime in the area and the other home, which was also operated by Regional Therapeutic Homes, is countered by the planning supporting statement from Steve Ryan of Northampton Police, who states that Regional Therapeutic's other home has operated fine with no issues whatsoever. Okay.
Committee, if there's any questions for you.
Certainly.
Councillor Beard, if you've got one.
Yes.
Use the microphone.
Yes, I'm just a little surprised.
Put the microphone on.
Is it on? Sorry. Okay, I was just a little surprised, maybe you could enlighten me, why you've chosen this area with a very small building when we have a lot of places around the town with larger premises that could be more easily converted than this bungalow, that it's almost doubling in size.
I think this building's a good balance between accommodation area, but also garden space as well. There's a good balance between home space and play space, and again, the local vicinity with amenities. Seems like a ideal location.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yes, could you confirm? You say that the extension will be 20 feet 25 square meters extra. Did I understand?
Yes,
correctly?
yes, on the ground floor, it's taken into account the additional ground floor space over the existing sunroom and that small rear extension at the back.
And upstairs?
I have to be honest, I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering about the highways issues there. I just wanted to know what sort of timings the vehicle is going to be moving around. Are they, I mean, your shifts and things like that, are they going to be coinciding with school pick-up and drop-offs, or are they going to be different times of the day? Just wondering how much it's going to impact on the local highway situation.
Sorry, it's breaking up towards the end, sorry. It's just, about staff and numbers and shifts and such.
Yeah, what timings do you reckon that the people are going to be moving around?
That would be for the client Hannah to answer, but I believe there's no traffic or no staff change between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. I think. Yeah, there's two members of staff, I believe, with a shift changeover. So there's controlled people and vehicles. I think there's a policy about using public transport, but Hannah should be able to answer that one, I'd have thought.
Okay.
She's the operational aspect of the running of the home.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Stokes. So
Thank you very much.
Now call on Hannah Farrell to address us. And just to remind you, have 3 minutes. If she's still here.
Hello, good evening. Can everyone hear?
We can. I'll start your 3 minutes now.
Hi there. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the committee in regards to some of the objections that have obviously come through. Obviously, I'm not speaking from a planning perspective, but more from the kind of social work aspect. I have obviously met with one of the residents and kind of heard his concerns in regards to the concerns around, you know, the change of use. And I do understand the concerns that the neighbours have raised in regards to increase of antisocial behaviour, the mention of drugs or alcohol being increased, smoking, and the fact that this site is going to be an absolute no-no and that the residents won't allow it to go through. But all I will say is that we do run a home locally. It was approved for 5 children. We've only ever housed 3 children in that home for the reasons of we have to make sure that the children live dynamically with one another. We wouldn't just place 4 children straight away. We have to make sure that, the children are rightly matched. Just in terms of a background, I can assure local residents that the children we look after are ones within the Northamptonshire County who need therapeutic care. They can't live with their parents due to the abuse that they've suffered, and we believe that they also deserve a right to family life, which we want to offer. We're rated outstanding with Ofsted, which means that we provide the highest quality of care. We don't take children who are violent or who have profiles of the concerns which the neighbours have raised. And in regards to the sufficiency note, there is a national crisis for the types of homes where children should live. Northampton Council have asked us to open the home on the proviso that we already have a home that's working exceptionally well with the borough. And the children need to live somewhere. At the moment, we're moving children into Scotland because there's nowhere for them to live. In regards to the concerns that the neighbours have raised, look, we want to work in partnership with the neighbours. We have done in our other home. They get on extremely well with the children, and they're considered to be kind of part of the family community. And that's what we would hope to achieve here. I'll answer the point in regards to staff changeover, etc. So the plan is that we would house a maximum of 4 children with 2 staff on shift at any one point. There'll also be a manager that visits during the day. There won't be any additional need for staffing because, as I said, the types of children will be those that reflect the normal 2.4 parent lifestyle. Staff changeovers will be around 8 a.m. and finish at 10 p.m. And we're not the type of home that has staff awake because our children won't need that. All staff will be asleep by 10:30. And that's exactly what happens in our other home, and we haven't had any issues there. So I hope that kind of does alleviate some of the concerns, because I know that a lot of this is borne out of the fact that it will be a children's home rather than some of the other kind of planning issues. So I just wanted to speak and say that, you know, they have my assurance that we are.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll see if anybody on the committee's got any questions for you. Councillor Irving Swift, you're first, please.
Yes, thank you. Now, you just say that it was 4 children maximum. Because
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, you say that it would be 4 children maximum. And can you tell us if you have an age restriction, or they start young and they finish when they are 18?
I'm really sorry, I can't hear. I can't hear what you're saying.
We just want confirmation that it's for 4 children and the age bracket that they're likely to be.
Thank you.
Okay, so the approval has to be between 8 and 18, because say if they move in at age 8, we have to have approval to house them until they're 18 in the event that they do stay with us for that long. I'll give you an example. In my other home, the children have only ranged between 8 and 13, and that's due to the type of need, and that they're the types of children that we accept that will be receptive to the type of therapeutic care that we offer. So I can't obviously say whether they'll be 8 or whether they'll be 16, 17, but normally we wouldn't necessarily accept children kind of 15 plus, because they would benefit more from kind of the semi-independent homes which we don't offer. So it's more of a kind of family feel. So the younger children is what we tend to accommodate.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Hill. Oh, Councillor Beers was first then.
I was first, all right. Hello there. Can you hear me all
Hi,
right?
Yes, I can.
Your company is called Regional Therapeutic Homes. How much therapeutic care do these children need? A lot of children that come into care, as you know, are damaged and often need therapeutic care. So what level of care do you give?
We really don't like to use the word damaged. They're traumatized and they have had, neglectful past. It very much depends on the types of needs of the children. We have a therapist that's on hand both virtually, and the children are taken to see the therapist who lives in Northampton. If they need to see the therapist every day, they can. If they need to see her once a week, they can. So basically the therapist helps us work out a plan on what's best for the children.
Thank you very much for the answer, but the question wasn't really a planning question. We were debating the plans in front of us. Councillor Hill, got a question, please.
And to be honest, mine probably isn't much of a planning question, actually. So, on that note,
Let's wait till comments.
Yeah, I'll leave it to comments.
Maybe. Any for Councillor Russell?
Hello, Hannah. I hope you can hear me. I'd like to know what sort of security you have to maintain the safety and safeguarding issues that these children may or may not have or need.
Okay, so in terms of security, obviously these children are in public care, so we put ourselves forward to care for them. In order to do that, we have to go through a 12-month registration process with Ofsted, which is a 6-month scrutiny, making sure that all of our staff are the highest qualified. And that means that they're appropriately trained, they have therapeutic training, we have to have training every single week to make sure that we're equipped to be able to deal with the level of need that these children may have. In terms of security, obviously we don't provide security because this is their home and this is what we hope to be their family home. So they live with their carers who do become like their family, because obviously they don't have one. So that's our plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you very much, Hannah.
No problem, thank you.
Anything you want to come back with there, Andrew, from what you've heard? There's quite a few issues around the cars and the spaces.
Yeah, just answer. I'll come back on some of those points. First, sort of the order that were given, there's a reference to it being a business use. Whether it's a business or not is not really the point, it's what impact it has. And as I said, it's seen as a similar impact to what could be a family home or what could be a use providing care. So whether it's a business or not isn't the sort of point. As far as highways are concerned, we get comments from highways, they're professionals, and whether they've visited the site or not, I'm afraid I can't answer that because I don't know, but they make the comment based on what they see. They've not got an objection on highways grounds or the level of parking. There's been quite a lot of talk about whether the children are going to cause problems or not have poor behaviour, that's, as we said before, not something that we can say they are or they aren't. It's coming a bit about the conservatory being a temporary building. This conservatory is not seen as a temporary building, that is an existing extension to the house, so it's being replaced by the new proposed extension.
Can I ask you to be quiet, please?
The garage is 25 metres. We've been lied to all the way along.
Mr. Croson, if you don't remain silent, I'll have to ask you to leave the meeting. People were quiet while you were speaking. Now please be quiet while other people are speaking and debating this. Right. One more warning and you're out of the meeting, I'm afraid. Andrew, carry on, please.
The other point there's been questions about what is the size of the extension. I don't have to hand the exact size of the extension. It's not a case that a certain percentage increase is allowed and a large percentage isn't. Each one is based on its merits and the impact of those extensions. I'll go back to the plans. If I just take you back to the plan, so this is the plan as proposed. This is as existed, so you can see what level of development there is already. The extent the conservatory is there, that will be replaced by a slightly larger extension. There will be another extension here, so it's not a great increase at the ground floor level. There is, I'll take you to the existing first floor. So this is so small from my point of view, that is the proposed first floor. So existing first floor, so the extensions would be in this area here and on this side here. So I haven't got a percentage figure, but it's not a great increase. And as I say, it's not a case that so much percentage is allowed and any more percentage isn't.
Okay, thank you. Any other points? Any questions? Yes, Councillor Evans.
Yes, we seem to have two things. One is the planning and one is the anxiety of people of what the house will become. Now, under permitted development, what could they build without any planning permission? What I try to go to is, if it's, as you say, a 5-bedroom house without the change of use for a children home, what would they be allowed to be as impact to the neighbourhood in terms of volume?
I mean, it's not based on volume, but as far as permitted development goes, it has been previously extended, so they probably have used up most of those rights, to be honest. But saying that, the side extension here, where the conservatory is, that will be the original side wall, so they could come out from the side up to half of the width of the house as permitted development. So there is some scope in the roof as well. Hip to gable conversion is permitted development. The dormer's already there, so we'd have to work out the exact volumes. There is some scope for that, as you quite right to say that, yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions to Andrew? Councillor Bearsworth?
Yes, could you just tell me, would you say this property with the extension fits in with street scene?
I mean, that is the view that it would fit in with the street scene as extended. It's already been extended. It's got the dormer, existing dormer, so this would be, I'll take you to the, this is probably the most helpful photograph. You can see the existing dormer there. This would be almost replicated there. The street does have a variety of different styles, types of housing. These are bungalows, dormer bungalows. There are 2-storey houses as well in the area, so I think it's a varied street scene.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Faber?
Yes. This one. Yes, I wonder, please, I think you just said it, but if you could just confirm it. If anybody else had this bungalow and they wanted to extend it in some different way, am I right in thinking that they could do more than this planning application under potential development? Can you just tell me that? It could be another application and it could make this one bigger and it would still be okay. I know I'm asking perhaps but
Yeah, I mean, as you talk about a theoretical different application, but if this had come in as a householder application, there was no change of use proposed, then I would be recommending that these extensions will be acceptable as a family home. So there's two elements to it. There's the extensions, there's the use. If it was just the extensions,
yes,
I would be making the same recommendation on those. If it was an existing dwelling that didn't need extending at all, then you'd be looking at just the use. And again, that falls back to it being a similar impact to what could be a family dwelling house.
yes, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions before we move to comments? Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn on this one, to be honest with you. I think on one hand, we've got a clear need for this sort of facility, and we know that the Children's Trust are in support of it. On the other hand, there's some clear issues with residents, and I know the area well as well, and I know that traffic is a problem. And having our conversations last night about highways, I'm not completely confident on what they say either. However, looking at what we've got, I think we're really going to struggle to have a material planning reason to object this, and that's the problem we have with what we've got in front of us. So that's where I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, I will concur with Councillor Hill, but could we put as a condition that no more extension is permitted, so we cannot. It's and it's for 4 children only.
It is.
Because
Sorry.
My thing is, I know the residents are very anxious to have children, but those children might not create more need. You know, and they are our children because we are corporate parents. So
the application is up to 4 children,
yes,
aged 8 to 18, and that is it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just clarify that there is a condition proposed to limit it to 4 children. As far as permitted development goes, there would be, with these extensions, limited scope for any further extensions as permitted development, so that's not going to be really necessary.
So we can be assured it's 4.
Yeah, the recommendation is to limit it to 4 children. Yeah.
But what I said, they cannot have another bite of the sherry and ask for more.
They could ask, and then it would be another application which would need to be considered.
So we cannot condition that.
We can condition now that it's 4, and if they wanted 5, they'd have to come back and apply again.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, the officer's recommendation is for approval. Do I have a proposer to accept the officer's recommendation of approval? Councillor Flavel, seconded by Councillor Russell. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. That's unanimous. Okay, that's passed. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 7E. Sorry, 7D, which is 12 Cedar Road.
Compensate us. You compensate it on my property 30,000 and still not able to sell it.
Normally, Chair, I'm just using the toilets.
Okay, yeah, that's okay, fine, yeah. You'd like to get stuff?
Make sure you look at my fucking bum when you leave. See your language up to
yeah.
You're a shambles, you're fucking shambles, a lot of you. Where's that holding getting up? Fucking run for the exit, I tell you.
Can I remind people that this meeting is actually being recorded?
It's not hard, I'm asking you to stop your language. I actually should have listened, mate, and made a right decision. I wasn't making a decision, I was in the room.
So I just remind people that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed.
Does it? Oh, that's nice then, isn't it, eh? You gotta watch your back. Fucking fellas.
Thank you for your comments.
Can I get in this way? Yeah. God, I don't think this works, does it?
It should do. It's right there.
Let's have a look. To go out, Councillor. How important this in the spreadsheet?
Did he? Before we left. Okay, we'll take that with you.
suggested that if you speak in future, we take your items first. So,
Yeah, that's
sorry.
a good plan. And the other thing is perhaps if we have a chance to catch up on the issue of councillors who don't sit on the committee making representation, we'll have a chat another time, but I think the democracy and standards, there might be space for non-decision makers to speak online in the future maybe. We'll catch up on
That
it.
might be better.
Yeah.
I sit on democracy and standards, and I thought that was something that we'd already
Yeah, I
agreed
thought it was.
to.
I have sent an email, we can catch up on it, but...
So, sorry, we're actually in the meeting, so we can't have these side debates right now. Sorry.
Right, okay.
We've got councillors.
We need to wait
Okay,
for
let's have
February.
a 5-minute adjournment then, we're waiting for people to come back.
So could we stop the meeting?
We can stop the meeting 5 minutes, and then we'll wait.
Have we started?
Yeah, we're not.
Oh.
You're right.
We need 2 more councillors.